Okay, now that we're done with 2 actual games, we're gonna go back to a relatively obscure Doom mod. This one's actually pretty high profile for a Doom mod, though. It's another total conversion. We're talking about the Golden Souls 2, a Mario-inspired Doom mod. And you might be thinking, 2? Well, what about the first game? Well, I've never actually beaten the first game. I've never even beaten this game. It's ridiculously long. All up, Ashes was around 5 hours long, even with Dead Man Walking Episode 1 and Afterglow combined. This game took me almost twice that to complete, 11.5 hours all up. Back to the first game, though, which is fine enough. It's perfectly fine, honestly. Although I would only consider it a prologue for this game. To get you caught up to speed, the Golden Souls are effectively an infinite source of power. Then one day a bunch of demons showed up and yoinked all of them. Their plan has something to do with the Icon of Sand and reviving it into some ungodly abominations with wings, at least from what I can gather from a walkthrough that I found on YouTube. So we go through and we kill all of them, as we should. We're Doom Guy. So okay, you've been caught up to speed. This game also has an introductory cutscene. Doom Guy is just chilling out with his pet bunny, Daisy. They're having a nice tea party when they get jumped by the Cyber Demon. So he grabs Daisy, and after the Cyber Demon storms off, he's still at least nice enough to leave us a letter detailing his plan to bring the Icon of Sin back again. They need all the Golden Souls and Daisy as a sacrifice. I'm not sure why they decided to take Daisy and not just some random bunny they could find off the side of the road. They could have easily avoided a lot of their problems if they just didn't piss off Doom Guy by taking Daisy, although I suppose anything involving demons, he would eventually bring Doom Guy into the fight regardless. Cool, okay, you're caught up with the story. There isn't much story in this game, which makes my job really easy. After that, we grab our piece and we're off to the races. The game is split up into 7 different regions with a bonus one at the end. Each of them have multiple levels that can be traveled back and forth through freely. It's not really a Metroidvania since the enemies stay dead on every trip and I rarely go back through to grab stuff. The world map is actually more reminiscent of Mario World with the different regions each capped off with a boss. The first game was definitely more Mario 64 rather than Land or Odyssey, considering the fact that it took place in a giant mansion. Regardless, the first zone is effectively one long tutorial for the rest of the game. Also, I forgot to mention that I'm playing on the Galactic Veteran skill. It's effectively the equivalent to Ultraviolence from Doom. Even though this is my first playthrough, I still thought that this one was relatively easily tackleable in small dosages at least. Anyways, the first level here is the Green Plains, and it's pretty good. Right off the bat, we're introduced to many of the basic enemies. There are plenty of returning clones from Doom, the Imps, the Pinkies, the Cacodemons, but there are more. The Mancubus, the Hell Knights, the Barons, and the Revenants. They all remain virtually unchanged with the exception of the Revenant, who we'll get to a little later on. There's also a bunch of new enemies. Firstly, these fire plant guys who spit fire. I know who would have guessed that one. They're followed up by these bigger fire pod guys who are stationary. The only thing you're going to have for the first section of this map is the pistol, which is fine. It's accurate enough, which makes it a decent sniper weapon early on. You've also got your fists, which are decent enough. They can be charged up for a super uppercut if you fancy, but I never really use them all that much. We can also get our hands on the double-barreled shotgun on this level, which is your workhorse for more than half the game. Also, more importantly, big coins. Keep your eyes peeled for them because they're going to be used to upgrade your weapons when you collect enough of them. There's 3 hidden in every single level, even in the boss levels. Sometimes they're hidden really, really fucking well, and I had to use a walkthrough for some later levels. Frankly, some of these are just hidden in ridiculously sadistic spots. Not this level, though. In fact, most of the levels in this first region are really easy, and I don't need to use a walkthrough on them. I know some of you may already be chastising me for using a walkthrough, but some of the later levels in this game are just absolutely labyrinthine and bullshit, so you'll see why. Oh god, you'll all see why. Alright, we're just gonna jump to the end of the first level. After that, I go to the shop and catch up with Crash, who I believe was the female counterpart to Doom Guy in Quake 3, but I'm not entirely sure. You can buy stuff from the shop with coins, like, ammo, health, and inventory items. Each shop in the game also has a golden weapon that can be purchased with enough big coins. The first one here is the pistol, and you'll need 15 coins to get it. If you get all of them from every level in that region, you'll have enough for every big coin gun in the game. The next level is the water caves, and it's mostly a water level. Get used to water levels, there's usually at least one in every region. Sometimes they're fine, sometimes they are absolutely grating. This one's okay. We also get introduced to the Shy Guys in this level, and they're effectively the stand-ins for the infected Marines from Doom. The red cloaks fire out 1 projectile, the green cloaks fire out 3 in a sort of shotgun-like spread, and the blue ones fire out a burst of 3 in a line. Gracefully, however, there are no hit-scan enemies in this game, which is a good change. There are still attacks that are very, very hard to avoid. The first half of this level is mostly platforming, and get used to platforming. I'd say 90% of my deaths throughout the entire course of this game are due to platforming, whether that be falling into spike traps or lava pits. The second half of the water caves is, well, the water caves. This section is mostly underwater, and we get introduced to things like the killer demon fish, who are a non-issue. We also get introduced to the tentacles that fire out these orb things, either one at a time or in this giant line attack. After the underwater torture, we swim back up to the surface, and the level is basically over. I will say that the swimming controls are at the very least intuitive. Thankfully, there's also no oxygen meter. With how long you spend underwater, it become a serious problem. After we clear out that level, we can go to the Yellow Skull Key Palace, where, you guessed it, you can find the Yellow Skull Key. This is basically the only Metroidvania element in the game. There are no actual keys to find on the levels themselves, but sometimes there are levels that have special doors or switches that need a key to activate. There are no actual enemies in this castle, just a fuck ton of coins which I save for a dire situation later on. The next proper level is the Groovy Grotto, and it's a bunch of grey caves. This wouldn't be a problem, but we get our hands on the machine gun, which is absolutely excellent. It's your workhorse for most of the game. Its spread is abhorrent, but it stun locks really well, which makes it good for bigger targets like Cacodemons. And also the Hellmites, who make their first appearance in this level. They're rather easy to take down considering the fact that you have a surprisingly good arsenal in this game. We can also find the first Fire Fist pickup, which is effectively a Fire Flower from Mario. It'll give you a super overpowered attack that'll just about kill anything in the game in a single hit. Savor it because these things are very rare to come across. There's also a lot more platforming in this level, now featuring moving platforms, which is, fine? I don't know, the platforming in this game really just never did it for me, but whatever. Eventually, after we get out of this level, the next one is Oriental Garden. I always forget this one exists, but it's always a welcome surprise when I do remember that it exists because it's a comfy level with some good aesthetics. And the music, which I actually forgot to mention. Some of it is from various different Nintendo games, others are actually made specifically for this game. It can range from being pretty great to being pretty underwhelming. Let's see, there's a school hedge maze near the tail end of the level. You're gonna have to go through the hedge maze like 4 times, and you're gonna have to like it because it's almost like a fifth of the goddamn level, but whatever. After we left the gardens, I decided to go to the Spider Mansion, mainly to pick up a new weapon with the blaster. The blaster itself is decent. It's good for saving ammo since it has a rechargeable battery and you can fire a recharge shot too if you choose. I took to using it on low tier enemies to conserve on ammo later on. We can't actually beat the Spider Mansion right now because we need multiple different keys and we only have the yellow one, so we'll be back here later. After our romp through the gardens and our brief visit to the mansion, we go to the Calicent Castle? Calicent? How do you pronounce that? It's the boss level of this region. It's also one of the only boss levels in the entire game to resemble a typical castle structure with all the fire and lava. It's actually a pretty cool aesthetic. At the very least, all of the boss castles are themed around their respective bosses, for better or for worse. Near the start of the level, we'll also encounter these Hell Knights who have green shells for helmets. They jump around and throw hammers or something. I honestly can't tell with how fast they move. There's also this big coin near the start that I'm convinced is almost impossible to get. I ended up cheating to grab it, but I swear I've managed to do without cheats before. Most of this level is going to be platforming, mainly around pits of lava and very haphazardly placed rocket turrets. Honestly, a lot of these bosses pick really shitty places to live. Also, I forgot to mention these weird mage guys who phase in and out of existence when you fight them. I took to stun locking them with automatic weapons since it prevents them from turning invisible. After we run the Gauntlet of Fire, we reach the boss arena. Our first boss is Efrit. Efrit? You know, that's just another stupid name. I'm just gonna move on. He's a complete pushover. He's super easy to take down, even without your full arsenal. He flies around and throws fire at you in the form of fireballs or firebombs that have a small area of effect. You can just circle strafe him and spam him with the machine gun and the shotgun until he goes down. I don't even die a single time. Once he goes down, we grab one of our 7 souls and we leave this joint for good. Before we head out to the next region, we have one more stop to make in the grasslands. No enemies at the door. I guess I'll just head on inside and... Oh dear God. I'm not too comfortable with this creature in front of me, so I'm just going to cut to the chase here. Her name is Madame Catco, and she wants us to grab a bunch of priceless spider jewels for her. The golden spiders we need to kill are scattered around in a bunch of different levels in the game. The Spider Mansion had a few, but we'll need a couple keys before we can get them all, like I said earlier. She says that if we get them all, there'll be something fun in it for us, so it's a deal. Okay, now we can move on to the next region. The first level of this region is the Land with No Name. It's pretty solid, and it starts with the trend of the first level in each region being the best in the region. This one isn't actually the best, but it's pretty damn close. The next string of levels are desert themed, and the entire aesthetic of this game is completely flipped. There's one thing this game does right, it's that all the levels are still very visually striking and pretty. Whatever, it's not important, at least not compared to the trumpet bus. It's effectively the stand-in for the rocket launcher, but it's actually better in my opinion. It's a blunderbuss that fires highly volatile music, so it's probably full of My Chemical Romance CDs. It's just great. The sounds, the sprite work, everything with this gun is just top-notch. Like, what other game can you play that you can say, oh yeah, I can kill people with fucking music? There's also a new enemy, these weird goblin things who lob spiky balls. To say the least, they're incredibly annoying. A couple of stray rifle rounds or some ammo from the upgraded pistol will usually do the trick. The last section of this level is the town. I don't know its name. I don't think it has one. The level title says it doesn't, so I'm gonna go with that. After we clear out the town and we do some wild diving, we leave the level. The next thing I do is pop into the store in this region. The merchant is, well, the merchant from Resident Evil 4. He even has the same one-liner. He has ammo for the newly acquired trumpet bus and a new item, the heart bottles, which are basically just portable medkits. Every time I buy one, I just accidentally use them whenever I quicksave, so I never use them. The next level is the Arid Abode, and it's the first one in the game, not counting the Spider Mansion, to have the golden spiders, alongside normal big coins. This level is a pretty basic spooky mansion with these weird mummy guys as well as the Lost Souls. The Lost Souls are more like the Boo Ghosts from Mario. You have to look away for them to be vulnerable. You better get used to doing the Lost Soul Ghost dance if you're planning on beating this game. And what is that dance? Well, it goes something like this. Step 1, locate the target. Step 2, look away for half a second, so they'll taunt you. Step 3, flip around and shoot it with a shotgun. Step 4, profit, I guess. This level is absolutely chock full of these guys, and you better get used to dealing with them. There's also these other spooks here too, like these flying guys who breathe fire and die in a blaze of glory. They also sound incredibly annoying whenever they die for some reason. There's also the choking hands, which are effectively the same as they were in the original Blood, except now they're ghostly white instead and have even more annoying noises. This level is honestly kind of bland design-wise. There's a cool library and the crypts and this weird door puzzle. Okay, it is actually pretty cool. Did I mention that this level has a secret exit? Yep, first one in the game. If you don't want to be spoiled, then skip to this timestamp here. Still here? Okay, well the secret level is Silhouette Sunset, and frankly it's kind of terrible. Well, it's okay. The premise is actually pretty cool. The entire level is pitch black, and you'll have to pick out the enemies without actually seeing their real sprites. As far as I know, these are completely different textures and sprites that don't appear anywhere else in the game, which is actually a really cool detail. So what's the problem? This level has one of those absolutely grating underwater sections that we talked about. Firstly, it hurts my damn eyes to play since it's dark and blue, and it just, oh my god, it's fucking ugly. There's also these awful squid things that move erratically and fire a projectile that fucks up your screen. I'm just gonna skip past this curse segment and cut back to when we get to the surface. Also, I forgot to mention that there's a couple mancubi. That's right, I used the plural term for mancubus. Is there a plural term for mancubus? You know what, it doesn't matter. And also, there's a handful of revenants here too. The mancubi are exactly the same, and the revenant is also mostly the same with one absolutely nasty change. Instead of having the normal homing missile, which is relatively easy to avoid, they fire something akin to a projectile that Avor would fire from Quake, where it's locking on and bullshit not even remotely fair. The best way to dodge one of these things is actually by ducking around corners or behind low cover. There's also a Baron of Hell here, but I honestly can't remember where. They're not a big deal since they're not different from their normal counterparts in Doom, so whatever. Okay, now we're done with that nightmare of a level. The next level can be one of two different levels, either Lilac Landscape or Relic Ruins, and if you think Lilac Landscape sounds more visually interesting, then you'd be right. It's the one that I choose to play next, too. It's actually a pretty cool level, both visually and gameplay-wise. The death pits in this level are the disgusting Heinz Easy Squirt pink ketchup shit, and true to life, it kills you upon contact. This level also has an interesting temple section, which introduces you to the spike traps that raise and lower. They'll instantly kill you if you touch them, and they become a mainstay throughout the rest of the game. After the section in the temple, we have to take a clear path through this marketplace, and the game is nice enough to grant you another Fire Fist power-up. This section is absolutely frantic, and I love it. After that, it's pretty much smooth sailing till the end of the level. Now after the Lilac Landscape, you could just go straight to the boss, but we aren't doing that. We've still got big coins to collect after all. The other level on offer is Relic Ruins, and it's perfectly serviceable. The whole gimmick with this one is quicksand. Well, not really quicksand, and it's just kind of brown water that drains your health. So going off of that, I'm just assuming it's the water from the Chicago River. To actually get through this level, you need a quicksand power-up, which only appears in this level, and like the name suggests, you have a complete immunity to the quicksand effects for a short period of time. Honestly, even with the quicksand, this level really isn't all that hard. The real challenge here is, staying awake. However, after that round, we can go to the Pyro Pyramid, which might be my favorite level in the region. It's another one of those boss castles that looks nothing like a boss castle, although I suppose you could at least give it a pass considering that it's a pyramid. This level introduces another new power-up, the Flight power-up, although like the quicksand immunity, it's only used for progression. At the very least, this one appears in other levels too. This level is an absolute gauntlet of sand and fire and, well, a lot of stuff, okay? Honestly, other than the introduction to the Flight power-up and the fire springs, this level is mainly just one gigantic combat arena. Eventually, though, we do reach the boss arena, and the boss this time around is the Anu Beast. Okay, that one's kind of funny. It's a better name than Afrit, or Afrit. I'm never gonna know how to pronounce that. I should probably just stop. This one's actually kind of a doozy. He'll throw snakes at you that home in and deal kind of poison damage. But, if you're accurate enough, you can shoot them down. So the strategy for the first phase is to spam his projectiles with the rifle at close range and then bonk him with the trumpet bust from afar. In his second phase, he'll start tossing these purple snakes that don't really home in, but they will go flying in an unpredictable direction and just bounce off of any walls they hit. He also has these yellow ball things, which are kind of a joke since I barely get hit by them. I only die once, and after that it's only a matter of time. Okay, Soul 2 down. Before we go on to the next section, I loot back and get the upgraded shotgun for 33 big coins. I forgot to talk about the pistol upgrade, so I'll talk about this one now. The upgrades themselves only really entail a few things across all the weapons in the game. There's always a damage increase, but sometimes there's also a fire rate or magazine capacity increase. Like I said before, every weapon in the game, for the exception of the blaster in your fists and one more weapon we'll get later on, can be upgraded. Okay, you got that? Let's move on to the next region now. The next string of levels is aquatic themed, and our first level here is Sunny Seaside. It's another case of the first level being close to the best. There is one level that I think is better, but we'll get to that one later. Anyways, back to Sunny Seaside. This level is great. It's bright, colorful, the music is nice, the aesthetics are nice, and generally it's a good time. You can also pick up the Star Shooter, which is effectively the plasma gun except ugly and loud. It still becomes another workhorse in our arsenal, however. Its alternate fire allows you to shoot a bouncy shot that, you guessed it, bounces off walls. It's also almost completely useless. It's not like it does more damage or costs more ammo, it's just a bouncy projectile which has a longer cooldown and doesn't do any more damage. Still though, good map, and also don't forget to kill a golden crab, it's crucial that you do. The next level in this region is Port Paradise, and it's the level that I alluded to being better than the first one. It's a quaint little coastal town under a beautiful sunset, and you know what, it's just perfect. The gameplay here is finally starting to heat up too, now that we've met most of the monsters and have the majority of our arsenal. There isn't a whole lot to touch on here other than the actual 3D bells, which is something that always kind of bugged me. At least you can ring them though, that's pretty cool, I guess. I suppose there is one thing that I don't like about this level, which is this underwater section that has the annoying squids from before. If there's one thing this region takes full advantage of, it's the annoying underwater sections. After that, we go through some more docks and the level's basically over. The next level is Beautiful Bay, and this one's okay. This one is definitely the filler level of the region. It looks nice, but other than that, there really isn't a whole lot to write home about. There are a handful of new enemies, these weird mouthy eel things. They're another annoying underwater enemy, so they fit right in here. We've also got the jellyfish. They're not enemies or anything, they're just around doing stuff. And these black orbs that shoot fireballs that'll home in on you. Other than the new enemies, there's basically nothing interesting in this level. I'm just gonna save you 10 minutes and jump to the next level. The next level is the spooky sunken pirate ship, and it's this region's spooky house with the spiders, even though it's not a house, it's a boat. I'd say this is effectively the polar opposite of the last level, since there's a bunch of things to talk about here. This level is actually pretty sick, even though you spend most of it underwater. There are some non-swimming sections where we get introduced to the real spooky skeletons. If you kill them normally, they come right back up, so you gotta use a projectile weapon to take them out for good. There's also a mini-boss, this weird eye creature thing. He can only be damaged when his eye is open. Even with that fact, I still take him down only on my second try. When he goes down, he'll actually drop you a big coin, which is rather nice. After that, the level is basically over. I mean, there still are some things that I forgot to mention, like the Medusa doors that can only be opened by flipping a switch. Or the fact that this level is absolutely fucking labyrinthine and confusing to navigate. Anyways, once we leave the ship, it's time to head to the worst level of the game. No, I'm not kidding, this one's really bad. Yeah, the Shrine of the Abyss, it just fucking sucks. There's no way of going around that, it's just not good. If you thought the last level was labyrinthine, well, you ain't seen nothing yet, son. This level absolutely blows. Firstly, it's another boss castle that isn't a castle, which would be fine. The Power Pyramid was great, but this level just fucking sucks. True to its name, you spend at least a third of it meandering around underwater. Not to mention the fact that this level is long as hell, it just keeps going and going and going and going. You think, surely this must be it. But no, it's not. It never ends, or at least it's what it feels like. You get through the opening section, right? But then you have to do this platforming nonsense. Then you have to go into this room with a bunch of breakable walls. You don't have to go in there, but if you want to get the big coins, then you do. Just fuck this level, it's garbage. And after all this shit, the blue, the water, and the bearing of labyrinth that a Minotaur would get sick of, you still have to face the boss. And sticking to the theme of the level, he's a pain in the ass to deal with. The deep one. What? Are you trying to pull some Lovecraft shit on me now? The boss doesn't actually damage you directly, he'll just shoot water at you and try to knock you off the platform. Each phase just makes the arena smaller, which means that you have less room for error when circle strafing. But like all bosses, eventually, he goes down. So I grab the soul and leave this cursed place for good. You can even see my excitement when I leave. Before I go to the next region, I head over to the shop to pick up our next golden gun, which is the rifle. This is one of the few weapons in the game to not just have its damage increased. It gets a fire rate buff that gives it the ability to dump 50 rounds in like 7 seconds or something. Anyways, now that we've dealt with that torture, it's time to move on to the best region in the game. Okay, the worst of the game is over. The rest should basically be uphill from here. The next region is the Shadowed Wood, or Dark Forest, whatever. The entire region takes place in a separate area on the map that has a different musical track. In terms of gameplay, this region is probably my favorite. It nails the whole spooky forest vibe really, really well. That point is even further stressed in the first level of this region, Moonlight Morass. This level slaps really hard and it's probably in my top 5, maybe even top 3 for the entire game. My main enjoyment is actually because we can get our hands on the cowboy shotgun. It's a good old-fashioned lever-action shotgun like the one shredded at Terminator 2. Unfortunately, you can't one-hand the thing, but then that would leave the possibility that it would have to be dual-wielded. Its damage rivals that of the golden double-barreled shotgun and it effectively replaces it once it's upgraded. Say goodbye to that said super shotgun because you're basically never going to see it again. This level also introduces these poisonous plants that effectively replace the fire pods from other levels. Their main attack does damage over time though, so be careful. Back to the level itself, which is kind of mazy. Even after levels like the Sunken Ship and the Water Temple, most of these levels will really test your navigation skills, skills that I lack to a dizzying degree. There's also this poisonous purple slop, which, it sucks, but whatever. Technically it's not as bad as lava since it doesn't kill you in one hit. There's actually another secret exit in this level that'll take you to the Pumpkin Pathway, which itself has at least 3 different exits to it. It's kind of standard in terms of gameplay, but it is very visually pretty. I like the warm orange tones that makes it feel very autumn-like. The first of our secret exits will take us to the Red Skull Key Palace, which has the Red Skull Key in it. I know, shocking, right? It also has one of these golden cacodemons that explodes into a pile of golden viscera when it dies. After we grab the red key, I go back to the pumpkin pathway and go to the next secret exit, which takes you to the ethereal zone. The next level I go to is the ethereal zone, and this one's actually pretty solid. It's almost a complete opposite of the pumpkin pathway with its mostly washed out color palette. However, it makes up for the lack of color with its aesthetics, which are great. It's set in this archipelago of floating islands with this large castle-like mansion in the center. This one definitely amplifies my already bad fear of heights to the extreme. The other levels weren't this bad because you could always at the very least see the ground, but here you're trapped in the void. In terms of gameplay, this level is exactly what you should expect. Honestly, if there's one thing this game lacks, it's variety in its gameplay. For almost every level in the game, it's just kill bad men, do some platforming, on repeat. It's not necessarily bad, at the very least the core gameplay loop here is solid. It just starts to feel tiring around the midpoint, and it's probably why I've never beaten this game before. Regardless, this level has another secret exit in it. This one won't take you to a new level or anything, but it will take you to the potion shop. I'd tell you what the potions do, but I've never felt the need to buy one throughout the entire game. Speaking of the shops, the shopkeeper in this region is fittingly the patron saint of the Ghoul's Forest. I can't remember the name of the guy, but he seems to be right at home here. He even said that he would have liked to join us on our quest. I like this guy, seems like a complete bro. The gold weapon that you can get in this region is the trumpet bus, which ought to be fun once we get to use it. The next normal level is the Venom Mansion, and this one's a doozy. Like all of the other mansions, it's an absolute maze, but this time it's even more labyrinthine with these doors here. Now only one of the colored doors can be opened at a time, either green or purple, and the only way to change which color door is open is by flipping a switch. Most of this level is based around this gimmick, so get used to it. While the overall core gameplay itself may be somewhat standard across the game, the levels usually do the heavy lifting in terms of gameplay. At the very least, each level usually has something that isn't used anywhere else, which is admirable. Like stated previously, the same can't be said for the combat. Once you get all of your tools and that high of having something new wears off, you'll fall into the same routine of shotgun and trumpet bust for most things, and rifle and star shooter for crowd control. Sure, there are enemies that force you to change up your playstyle here and there, like the skeletons or the lost souls, but even then they only really appear inside of the spider houses, and even then they're used to death there. Okay, I promise it's the last time I complain about the core gameplay. For now, we'll get on to the next level of this region, which is actually great. It's the Ghostly Woods, and this one really ramps up the Castlevania vibes. First with the use of the music, then with the whip. The whip is actually pretty useful. It can act like a standard melee weapon, but if you have above 75% HP, you can throw out a star projectile that's actually pretty powerful. It can take out enemies like Shy Guys and Imps in one projectile. This makes it a godsend for saving ammo later on, which you will absolutely need to do, because some of these levels will really start to starve you for more of your ballistic weapons. Hell, I don't get more ammo for the pistol until the 7th region of the game. I stopped buying ammo for it since it became obsolete after I upgraded the rifle. Back to the Ghostly Woods though, this level is actually really fun. It's got very funky vibes with the harsh reds and purples. It's not like ghostly, it's more alien in nature, at least in my opinion though. After we leave the Ghostly Woods, we can head into the final level of this region, which is Fort Phantom, and surprisingly, this one actually resembles a castle. This level also introduces a new trap, which are these spinning blade towers that don't appear anywhere else in the entire game. The main objective is pretty simple. Light 4 multicolored torches by killing a color-coded blood phantasm. Simple enough, really. I wouldn't consider the fights with the phantasms to be mini-bosses, since they're surprisingly easy to take down, barring the one in the room with the lava, though. After you light all of the torches, it's time for the boss, which is the Fallen Knight, and this one's actually really fun. His main thing involves spawning a fuck ton of skeletons that'll block your line of fire towards him. After only 30 seconds of fighting him, the fight turns into a chaotic mess of bony bastards. I took to circle strafing around him and spamming the trumpet bust to take him down, since he destroyed all the skeletons in his path. Once I leave, I head back to the shop and grab the upgraded trumpet bus. This is one of the more useful upgrades, even if it only increases the damage. The next region is this lovely hilly region which goes all the way up the side of this mountain. Our first proper level is Pretty Petals Peak, and this obviously falls into the rule of first level is the best level, or football. I don't know, you try to fucking pronounce that. Back to the level though, it's bright, colorful, and not too heavy on dickish enemies. Mostly at least. There is a new kind of enemy, these dirt monster pricks who mull around under the surface and pop up infrequently to throw balls of shit at you. They're incredibly annoying, maybe even more so than the goblin pricks, which are still more common. There are some annoying platforming sections here on these thin-ass stalks of these flowers here, but it's still pretty decent. This is also where the game is going to start heating up on higher difficulties, which means I die a lot more than I'd like to admit because I suck at video games. I mean, there are just tons of enemies packed into these levels now. Most of them from here on out are going to have over 100 monsters in them. We can also get our hands on the last of the available weapons in the game, which is the Cupid Mark V, a proper long-range weapon. Its damage rivals that of the upgraded trumpet bus. It also becomes my main weapon of choice against revenants and exclusive revenants for a very long time. This is because its ammo is rare and expensive. $60 for 4 shots. Other than that, this level really doesn't have much else to offer in terms of interesting content. The next level after Pretty Petals Peak is Mount Mirror, and let me tell you, this one's a doozy. Its main gimmick is a mirror world that you can access via these portals. The real world is very vibrant and bright, while the mirror world is the complete opposite. As you'd expect, it looks dried up and deserted, not to mention the fact that they replace water with the poisonous sludge from the forest. However, this isn't the biggest thing this level has. Oh, that would be these bony fucks, who are effectively revenants on Mega Crack. Instead of firing missiles, they have an attack that locks onto the player, and then they'll immediately fire at 12 mini-missiles instead. I rarely get footage of this attack, since I'm usually behind cover the second that they lock on as to avoid getting face-fucked by a volley of projectiles. Other than that, this level really doesn't have too much else to offer, so I'm gonna move on. Our next level is Chilly Cliffs, and this is where the icy vibes of this mountainous region really start to ramp up. This level is generally on the shorter side, so I'm just going to give you the spark notes for this one. Firstly, we've got shitty ice physics, which is something that I think should just been agreed upon to not ever be put in another video game ever again, but here we are. Second is the snowman here, who has a big coin for us. He's not too keen on letting it go, so I persuade him. We've also got the underground ice caverns, which introduces us to a new trap, that trap being falling icicles. Anyways, the next level in this region is the Spooky House, Rhymy Residence. This one, unlike the last level, is actually really enjoyable. I mean, the previous one wasn't bad, it was just whatever, but moving on. Unlike Venom Villa, this level doesn't have any annoying switch nonsense. Instead, we've got a furnace that needs to be filled with four fucking buckets of coal? I know this is a big furnace, but Jesus Christ, one entire bucket should be just fine to melt this ice flow to the exit. You've got to go all over the mansion several times over to find these damn buckets. Through underground crypts and caverns and very thinly veiled Shining references. In terms of combat, get ready. Come on close here. Are you close enough? It's exactly what you would expect. Ooh, shocking stuff, right? Jesus, I sound like a broken record here. At the very least, this level is cool enough to make that combat not stale and overly repetitive. God damn it, I hate when the only way forward is to make shitty ice puns. Anyways, after that romp through the Rhymy Residence, say that 5 times fast, we're on the last level of this region, the Arctic Alakazar, and this one's a pretty fun time. No crazy ghost hunting or horrible layouts, just a solid gauntlet to run through, complete with traps and hazards that you'd expect from these levels. I suppose a highlight could be this pretty cool Crusher Room, but other than that, there really isn't a ton else to write home about. I mean, I guess there is a pretty cool courtyard section, which is pretty fun to fight through. You know, let's just move on to the boss. The Frost Fiend, the Baron of the Mountains. He's whatever, a knockoff Mr. Freeze if anything. But not the cool Mr. Freeze, the one from the Batman and Robin movie. His main attack is this beam of frozen water that'll slow you down and hurt you if you get hit by it. Kinda like these weird stacked head enemies that I completely forgot existed until right now. Anyways, the boss also has some icy flechettes that he'll toss at, which also slow you down. Whatever, this boss is just kinda boring actually. After a small bout of circle strafing, he goes down well enough. Alright then, we're moving up in the world, 5 out of 7. After I leave the Alakazar, I head back to the shop and grab the upgraded Star Shooter, which is a serviceable upgrade. It's just a damage boost, nothing too out of the ordinary. Alright then, time to keep moving. Wow, I'm so creative, eh? Whatever. The next region on the map is this floating city or castle in the sky. Whatever, at this point I'm just jaded and needlessly tired of this shit. I'm just gonna jump right in here to save on time since this video is already starting to drag and we've still got a third of the game to go. The first level is the Strawberry Fields and it's fantastic. In terms of aesthetics, this level is definitely getting top marks. Very few of the levels in this region have a strictly defined style, but they're all visually stunning. Once again, the map design does most of the heavy lifting. I know I'm just rambling at this point, so I'm gonna try to reel myself in here. This level is also enormous, with many floating islands and the yellow submarine. We missed out on one in the Oceanic region, so I suppose we'll take one here. We can actually enter said submarine, but first we have to go through some platforming, now featuring proper jump pads. The white ones just send you up and the pink ones shoot you in a strictly defined direction. I want to touch on the aesthetics of this level again, because it is very pretty. Not as good as some of the levels in the Golden Souls 3 demo, but this is definitely the best that they could do. Honestly, this is one of my favorite levels in the game. Once we actually reach the submarine, we've got a fight waiting inside. There's also this weird polka dot room hidden in the bowels of the sub that is a big one, and whatever, I'm just gonna move on. To actually get to the next segment of the level, we have to drive or fly, whatever you want to call it, over to this town, which is the next part of the level. At this point, the level is basically over. We just clear out the town and it's the end of the level. The next level is Sweet Sugary Skies, and this one left me scratching my head for a couple reasons. Firstly is that this level's name would insinuate that it's featuring exclusively sweet treats, but we've got things like burgers and these chips and the underground milk pools. Oh god, don't even get me started on the underground milk pools. I actually don't know if it's milk or something else, but if it's something else, I'd rather not touch on that. Also, there's just fish here for some reason. I'm not sure how they're still alive, but I guess they're demon fish, so it's fine, right? Right. Why am I putting such emphasis on this one minute detail of this average level? You know what, I'm just gonna move on. The next level is the Overgrown Brambles, and for whatever reason, I guess this one just ended up being the one that tested my patience the most. I can't exactly put my finger on what made me so pissed off on this level. Oh, who am I kidding? It was definitely the Bramble Maze. I was so desperate that I had to cheat. There's a big one that you need a flight power-up to get. And I, for the life of me, could not figure out how to get the damn thing to last long enough so that I could actually fly up and get the coin. Maybe that's because you fly up so fucking slow. I mean, my god, just look at this shit. Other than the mess of green, I guess this one isn't too bad. It's just a mess of platforming and brief shootouts with enemies. I guess the visuals are unique at the very least. It's a very green if you couldn't tell. You know what, I'm just gonna jump to the next one here. The next level in this region is the Spooky House, which is the Crescent Moon Manor, and I gotta tell you, this one is really damn good. It's a nice palate cleanser when put up against the previous level. I like it enough to not mention all of the disappearing Mega Man platforms all over the place. There's this cool other world that drops you in when you play this piano, the music changes and the level warps into this nightmarish hellscape. It's really cool. There's even a new monster, these flying Baron pricks who throw out fire at you. If I had a quarter for every enemy in this game that threw fire or some flammable shit at you, would have like maybe $2. Whatever, these guys aren't too bad, but we won't be seeing them again until much, much later on. After you cleanse the manor of the cursed, because of course it's cursed, you have the option to leave, but you'd miss out on the opportunity to grab the blue skull key from the blue skull key palace. After I grab the last key, I head back to the spider engine since I can fully progress through now that I have all the keys. This level is actually pretty fun, all things considered. However, our progress is gated off yet again at this big-ass spider door that we need a key for, so we'll be back later. Again. The boss castle of this region is Tower Rewat, and unfortunately I misplaced all my footage for this one, which is a shame because this level is actually pretty fun. If you couldn't guess the gimmick from the name, the whole level can flip upside down at a few points, which is pretty cool. The boss would have been Azazel, who's a flying prick. Honestly, there wouldn't have been much to go through except for the flipping stuff, so I guess it's fine overall. If your favorite level was Tower Rewat, then I'm sorry that I couldn't do it justice. Oh, who am I kidding? I don't care. The golden weapon that we can pick it from the Cacodemon Bob Ross is the Cowboy Shotgun. And if you thought the other Cowboy Shotgun was already OP, then I've got news for you. Not only does the gun get a damage buff, but it also gets an extended mag, which means it can hold 8 shells instead of 5. It goes from being a solid weapon to practically the only thing that I use for a while. Alright then, we've only got one more soul to go on from here. Okay, we've made it to the city. If you stuck around, I'm very proud of you. I mean, we've seen some shit, from the barons and the ungodly horrors of the Shrine of the Abyss. In terms of gameplay, this is probably one of the most challenging regions in the game, a true test of the player's abilities. The first level on offer is Sunny Hill Simulation, and it isn't that bad. It's effectively a virtual recreation of the first level of the game, except way harder and not really similar at all, actually, now that I think about it. That difficulty is slightly mitigated by the incredibly handy Golden Cowboy Shotgun, which kicks all kinds of ass. I suppose I should talk about the Pain Elementals, who have been around for like 3 regions now, I just haven't bothered mentioning them. They're white and spit out these magma crabs that are entirely harmless. Honestly, these guys are just more of a nuisance now, which is good, because the normal Pain Elementals fucking suck! Back to the simulation, though, the level, not the game. Not a whole lot to cover here, though. No new enemies or weapons, just a pretty, straightforward jump through the level. There is an underwater sequence, which I'll give a 4.9 out of 10 on the grading scale, which means it's great at being grading. Damn, that's really the best pun I had on offer? Jesus. Anyways, the level after that is the Damp Depths, and this one is arguably one of the more forgettable in the games. Despite the difficulty of this section, there really isn't a whole lot to go on here. I mean, I guess you could say that this is technically a sewer level, even if it's alien and colorful. You know, just forget I said that. It looks nothing like a sewer. Hardly plays like a sewer level either, which is a good thing. I guess there are these more interior industrial areas, and they're gray and boring and exactly what you'd expect. The fog of the level also changes depending on what area of the map you're in, which I guess is pretty cool. Okay, our next level is the industrial mines, and if you thought the last level was kind of forgettable, then boy, are you in for a ride. Wait, what were we talking about again? Sure, I like the aesthetics, at least in the early level. The bright purple crystals are a nice touch. After all, we are in a big mine, so I guess that checks out. There are also some more indoor areas like this warehouse, where you can pick up some more pistol ammo, which is a surprise to say the least. Not a good surprise or a bad surprise, just one that exists, I guess. Thankfully, the next level, the Spectral Steamworks, makes up for the fact that both of the previous levels were forgettable as hell, because this level is awesome. It's the Resident Spooky House and a factory. That might not sound like a fun romp, but the map designer took that as an excuse for this level to be really cool and actually kind of downright inspired. Like all the lava pits. Why are there so many lava pits in this fucking Steamworks building? You know what, I've just stopped questioning it at this point. There's also this gigantic outdoor section where you can see glimpses of the factory, which you can't explore, but hey, it's still pretty neat. The battles here are also surprisingly fun. There's plenty of room to circle strafe and you get a surprisingly good amount of ammunition. Sure, it uses the godforsaken Mega Man platforms and the conveyor belts that actually move you. And hey, what's this weird little button doing here? If you don't know what this is supposed to be a reference to, this is a small area from another Doom mod, The Adventures of Square, which is another great mod. You can find a similar Easter egg in the map Arid Abode, which is an homage to another mod, Shadow of the Wool Ball. I've never played it, but I've heard it's pretty solid. Now that I think about it, I should probably do a video on Adventures of Square. It's a pretty fun game. Other than that, we've got some trains and some other stuff, whatever, the level's basically over after the Easter egg. The last level of the region is the Binary Bastion, and this time I actually have footage for it. This is probably one of the hardest boss castles in the entire game up until this point. It's packed full of tough enemies and not a lot of health. The whole theme of this level is, well, binary, or tech, whatever you want to call it. It's very green. Not forest green or sewer green, but technology green. I also forgot to talk about the explosive power barrels that just kind of litter these levels from time to time. They're not an issue. You know, let's just go kill the Cyber Demon. No, not that Cyber Demon. Yeah, that Cyber Demon. He's like a demon, but cybernetic. And this fight is actually pretty fun. He shoots missiles and basically nothing else. They either home in on you or they're just generic projectiles. I actually get some good use out of the super shotgun here as I dodge close enough and we're full double-barrel blast sometimes. But like all bosses, he eventually goes down. Once we leave, we obviously go back to the shop and grab the golden gun, which is the Cupid Mark V. The mag capacity gets doubled and it gets the complementary damage boost like all weapons. So finally, after running a gauntlet of torture across the entire planet through water temples and floating islands, we make it to the UAC headquarters. When we arrive, Samuel Hayden is there to greet us. He blabbers on about power and how the souls are an infinite source of power or some shit. I honestly didn't really pay attention to any of it. More importantly, though, we can finally access the portal to Hell, a thing that the UAC just conveniently has access to, which is par for the course. To actually get to Hell, we need to get all the 7 golden souls, and we use them to activate the portal. Once we do, we can cross the threshold and cross the point of no return. This is it. The final stretch. All we have to do is carve a path through the last of the demon horde and save our pet bunny. Oh, and, like, kill God. Sounds pretty easy, right? We'll see. The first level here is Demonic Den, except it's not a den or a cave. It's like this giant orange canyon of hellfire, which, to say the least, is actually pretty cool. This last segment of the game really ramps up the difficulty, and the amount of enemies here at each level gets ramped up to 11, or 12, I honestly don't know. Each level has like 150 monsters in them now, though. We get reintroduced to those flying Baron pricks from earlier in the floating castle region. I say reintroduced because those two in the Crescent Moon Manor were the only ones before this. They're kinda used as mini-boss enemies. Or at least I'm assuming so, since they eat up bullets like a goddamn sponge sometimes. There's also this jump across this gap that always bamboozled me because some idiot put a torch here. In fact, most of the jumps in this level are like that. The next level is the Stick Swamp, which is a swamp level. It's not the water torture of the Shrine of the Abyss, so I'm gonna take what I can get. Oh, I forgot to mention the mini Archviles. They're fine enough. They don't resurrect fallen comrades like the real deal, but they do throw homing fireballs, like a very large selection of other enemies in this game. There is an enemy that can resurrect its friends, however, and it's these weird, soupy imp things that can resurrect any fallen version of itself, which is a major nuisance. They don't do a ton of damage, but they tend to stick around a lot more often than you'd think. Wait, I was talking about the Stick Swamp, right? Yeah, it's fine. No, really, that's all you're gonna get. Our next level is City of Dis, and this one's actually pretty damn fun. Not perfect, but there are some fun fights here and there. Not much to touch on other than this infuriating jump with the platforms that lower directly into lava for some reason. It also has at least a dozen of those flying Baron fucks crammed in. The next level here is the star of the show for me. It might be in one of my top 3 throughout the entire game. It's the Gluttonous Gorehouse, and god, what a fucking name that one is, eh? I may have said that another one of the Haunted Mansions has this one beat, but I might have changed my mind throughout the course of writing the script, and also recording. Then again, the other one doesn't have snot rivers or mouth doors, so I think this one might actually take the cake. For once, I'm actually going to highlight the music, which fits this level perfectly. It's subdued and it drones on, fitting the creepy atmosphere really well. I'm not sure if this level is supposed to be just some weird flesh house or if it's an actual organism, Flesh Pit National Park style. I'm hoping for the latter, though. That would be cool. This is also the final level with golden spiders, which means that we can turn our spoils into Madame Kako. She still wants one more thing from us, though, and it's inside the spider key-locked door in the Spider Mansion. And that can only really mean one thing. Once we turn it into Madame Kako, she gives us a check for 20,000 coins, which will come handy in a bit, you'll see. After that, I head back to the shop in Hell, which might as well be a hot topic. It even has an incredibly unenthusiastic person behind the counter. But more importantly, I can pick up the backpack, which in my opinion should have been the first or second thing we picked up throughout the course of the entire game. The only thing it does is double your ammo storage capacity, which is helpful, but I'm only going to have it for like 3 or 4 more levels, so what's the point of giving it to me now? Whatever, I've meandered around for long enough. It's time to get revenge. The tower itself is an absolutely sprawling gauntlet of fire, a truly difficult test of the player's combat skills. It might not be as hard as Binary Bastion or needlessly frustrating as the Water Temple, but it is what it is in the end. Before we can reach the Cyber Demon to throw down, we have to go through his loyal companion, the Archvile. Oh, Archie, I was wondering when you were going to show up. I've had to put up with your imperfect cousins for the last hour and a half, and I'm looking forward to finally settling things with you. Honestly, I'm kind of sad that this is the only real Archvile in the game. They're probably my favorite enemy in Doom 2, so it's a shame that there's so few of them here. Or just one of them here. His attacks are about what you'd expect from a regular Archvile, so that's good. Unlike all of his crooked offspring, he can raise the dead like a proper necromancer. After we slay him, we head up to the Cyber Demon's penthouse, where we stock up on some spare ammo and health before facing the beast itself. He's gonna sacrifice our Daisy to revive the Icon of Sin, and that shit isn't gonna fucking slide. Especially not when he calls me fucking Helmet Head. The fight itself was really fun, semi-reminiscent of the fight from Doom 2016, except here he doesn't wall you in. He's got homing missiles and ground pounds and just a fuck ton of health. But like all the foes we've faced, he goes down. God, they really wanted to push that ass now, didn't they? In the end, we're too late. The Icon of Sin wakes up and we're cast into the void. This level itself doesn't have any enemies in it. I mean, the Cyber Demon is here and he's just taking a nap. Good, I want him back in Golden Souls 3 so I can kick his ass again. You know, let's just go kill Satan. He's enormous, way bigger and bolder than his counterpart in Doom 2. He does spawn monsters and occasionally throws fireballs at you. Surprisingly, this one isn't actually as hard as the fight against the Cyber Demon, though. But nothing can stop me now. I'm not gonna let you take over the world with all that exists in the name of hell. But finally, after he goes down, the demonic curse is lifted. We did it. We saved the day. The credits roll after we get a shot of Doom Guy and Daisy enjoying a lovely picnic. Jesus, what a fucking journey that was. You might think it's over, but we've still got 2 levels to clear out. Even after all this shit that we've gone through, we still have some more to get through. Thankfully, though, it's only 2 levels. The first one is inside of our house, which has been fully renovated. The guy at the door says that we need at least 20,000 coins to pay for the repairs, even though it's only 1 wall. Luckily for us, though, I do have that convenient 20,000 coin check from our good friend Madame Kako. So once we pay the goons, we can get inside. God, the repair guys didn't even do a good job. Daisy's there sleeping on the bed, although I'm not sure how she got inside with the goons at the door, but whatever. However, there is a new decoration. This lovely painting courtesy of the USC Corporation. When you interact with it, an island rises out of the ocean and it'll take you to the Happy Gardens, which is the first level of the first game. I have played the level in the first game, and I can attest to the fact that this rendition is virtually unchanged. It has more enemies and it's a little harder, as part of the course. All in all, this one actually isn't half bad. The big thing, however, is that we can finally get our hands on the 129th big coin, which means that we can go to the last level of the game, which is located off the side of the floating castle. This level is Astral Accomplishment. It's definitely one of my favorites in the entire game, which is a shame because, you know, it's the last one you get to play. It's extremely bright and loud. I probably would have turned the bloom on, but I'm not that much of a masochist. This one is also pretty fun combat-wise. It's not too challenging or brutal with the enemy placement, but a part of me wishes that this level was an absolute gauntlet of torturous bullshit. You know what, maybe I am a masochist. Whatever, after we clear the level, we get a nice 100% badge to show that you 100% of the game. All that's left to do is go to the bonus hut that's located off the spooky sunken pirate ship and look at all the neat concept art. Each room in the hut costs a bunch of big coins, and now that we've gotten all of the big coins, we can see everything. It's a comfy way to end the game. Jesus, what a fucking ride this has been. At this point, I would still recommend that you go and pick up this game. It's literally free. I mean, you still need to have a copy of Doom 2. And this one I'd actually recommend using a Doom 2 wand with instead of a free Doom wand, considering that it hinges off of a bunch of the monsters from the original Doom games. As usual, the link to this game will be in the description if you are interested. I'm not really sure what I've gained out of this experience. In the end, maybe the real Golden Souls were the friends we made along the way. Oh, who am I kidding? I was here to see that Cyber Demon ass. Hey guys, Skell here. Just before you go, I figured I'd pop in and clarify a couple things. Firstly, I wanted to thank you all for sticking around till the end of this one. I know this one wasn't exactly a palatable experience considering the fact that it's 40 fucking minutes, but thank you for sticking around. Secondly, I wanted to address the fact that I was jabronious for like a week and a half. My name on Discord is jabronious for some reason right now. We're back to being Skell though, don't worry about it. I'd also like to address the performance of my Red Faction video because, to say the least, that one kind of bombed. Like, really hard. I hate to have to do this, but I would like if you guys liked and subscribed maybe. You know, that'd be nice. God, I sound like such a hack right now. You know what? Just do whatever you want. But if you're watching this, then thank you. I really appreciate that. Feel free to also check out my other videos, except for that first one. That first one's kind of shit. But yeah, all the other ones are free game. That'd be cool. Wait, don't I owe you guys some kind of like combat slideshow? Ah, whatever. Roll the footage.